Thank you for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. Abortion access remains the main topic of discussion in Arizona politics, so we're breaking down where things stand at the moment. Let's begin with the top 3 things you need to know to understand abortion access in Arizona. An 1864 law is set to take effect following the Arizona Supreme Court's decision 2 weeks ago. Here's the partial text of the law. Notably, it bans all abortions except to save the life of the mother, and it calls for a 2 to 5 year jail sentence for a doctor who performs an abortion. The Arizona Attorney General says the soonest the ban could take effect is June 8th. The Supreme Court stayed its decision for 15 days, and a Maricopa County Superior Judge barred enforcement until 45 days after the Supreme Court ruling is final. There is a pending legal challenge about the constitutionality of the 1864 law, which could alter that timeline. As the legal challenge continues, abortion providers, including Planned Parenthood, say they will continue providing abortions until early June. Abortions are currently available up until 15 weeks because of a 2022 law which is in effect until the Supreme Court ruling on the 1864 law becomes final. At the Arizona legislature, the Republican majority has blocked efforts by Democrats to repeal the 1864 law. These moves have rallied supporters on both sides of the issue as we take a closer look at a day in the fight over abortion access in Arizona.
Life is a gift from God. We know that. God is a giver of life and God is a sustainer of life.
The day began with a prayer vigil. Right to Life advocates urge Republican lawmakers to stand firm in their convictions.
How disgusting is it for our Attorney General to say that our pregnancy centers that are fighting for women and families and babies.
The political earthquake that was the Arizona Supreme Court ruling affirming an 1864 law banning all abortions except to save the mother's life energized advocates. Jordan Britton with Students for Life said that since Roe v. Wade was overturned, the group has drawn more interest. They have 1,500 chapters, including 30 in Arizona, and aim to be in all public universities in the next 5 years.
Sadly, a lot of people think when Roe versus Wade was overturned that our work was done, and it's no, we don't have a federal ban. Babies are still being killed.
That work includes winning over hearts and minds. For Melanie Schwartz, those conversations began at home. She recalled learning of an unplanned pregnancy during a difficult financial time in her life.
It was not a good time financially for us to have a baby. A person is a person, no matter how small. It wasn't a choice for me to abort that baby because I knew that was my child. I trusted God to provide, and He did, and she's right here. And I'm thankful that I made that choice for her. I don't regret it whatsoever. Come here. This is my unplanned pregnancy right here.
And I'm glad she chose
Abby.
Life, because I'm a person, and I was a person in the womb as well.
Melanie drove up from Tucson to the state capitol with her daughter Allison and her other children. She felt happy to share this moment with them to stand up for their beliefs.
I want to do something important with my life, and if she would have aborted me, then I wouldn't be here to say this to you. I wouldn't be able to make a difference, and I wouldn't be able to speak out against these lives that might not be saved.
As supporters rallied outside, inside the chambers, the House was the first to take up the issue. Right to Life advocates watched on as 2 separate attempts to introduce a bill to repeal the 1864 law failed.
Thank you all for being here.
The last thing we should be doing today is rushing a bill through the legislative process to repeal a law that has been enacted and reaffirmed by the legislature several times.
As the House recessed, advocates for abortion access gathered supporters of a ballot measure that would enshrine the right to an abortion in the Arizona Constitution.
Our maternal death rate has quadrupled in this state. They are willing to let you die.
Organizers say they're well on their way to collecting double the amount of signatures needed to get it on the ballot. Sydney Carey has been helping collect signatures.
It's kind of like do or die. I was one of those people that watched the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and I didn't think it was out of scope for it to happen. So now with this ballot initiative, I just kind of want to do everything I can to at least get the option. And
Meher Rekar also supports access to abortion. She's graduating in May and starting her residency to become a gynecologist. She said having politicians interfere on such a personal decision makes medical students like her question whether to stay and practice in Arizona. and that could have lasting implications.
Even if there is a change in the legislature down the line, we may not have physicians who are appropriately and adequately educated in order to provide life-saving procedures. And even with this contingency of like abortion only in the case of like an emergency for the mother's health, like without adequate practice and without adequate preparation, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to like perform these procedures to the level that is necessary to provide the best care to our patients.
By the afternoon, it was the state's turn to attempt to repeal the 1864 law.
It is creating the fear in healthcare providers that they may need to close up shop and leave the state.
This time around, two Republicans joined all Democrats, helping pass a motion to introduce a bill to repeal the territorial era law.
System is now closed. By your votes of 16 ayes, 14 nays, you have passed the motion made by Senator Hernandez.
The bill's future in the legislature is uncertain, but as the day drew to a close, some House lawmakers vowed to continue pushing for a repeal.
Make no mistake about it, this law will be repealed. There are enough votes in this chamber to repeal the territorial law.
That leaves the prospect of a repeal hanging for another week as the fight for abortion access in Arizona continues. Two of the four judges in the Arizona Supreme Court that upheld the 1864 law are up for attention on the ballot in November. Joining me now is retired Supreme Court Justice Andrew Gold. He served in the Supreme Court from 2016 to 2021. Justice Gold, thank you so much for joining us. Can you please explain to us what it means for a judge to face retention?
A retention is an up or down vote on a judge. So if a judge gets 50.1%, they're retained. If they get less than 50%, then they have to step down. They would stay in office to finish their term, so all the way through the end of the year, although there are some laws, maybe arguably it could be sooner than that, but typically that's the case. And then the governor would get to appoint the empty seat. So the appellate or trial court commission has to meet, has to send up some names, and then the governor appoints.
And in your experience, to your knowledge, how often has that happened?
Very rare. Just a handful over the years, maybe one. I'm not sure, but it's extremely rare.
And now there's also another component to that, which is the Commission for Judicial Performance Review. The commission is meeting on April 26th to issue its recommendations for the judges that will be on the ballot in November. Can you tell us a bit more about what that commission does and what should voters know about, what happens in those meetings?
They should go. They should learn, because there's a lot of information that are at those hearings. So if you're a trial court judge, you get evaluated by the parties that appear in front of you, the lawyers that appear in front of you, and your colleagues, other judges on the Superior Court bench. All those evaluations and their scores and comments, those are all compiled by JPR. They review those. If there are any concerns in those scores and those comments, JPR will actually bring in that judge to meet with them and talk with them about it. It's just a compilation of a lot of information about a judge that's, the public probably wouldn't know unless they were in court every day.
And now, is that the same for all judges, regardless of their position, or are there differences, between, say, a Superior Court and a Supreme Court?
It's different only in terms of who gets to give input. So, if you're on the Arizona Supreme Court, you get input from trial court judges and Court of Appeals judges. You get lawyers and you get litigants too, but not that many people appear in front of those judges. So you're going to get less of those reviews, probably more from lawyers, more from Superior Court judges. Whereas trial court judges, they get a lot more evaluations from the litigants, plaintiffs, defendants, and the attorneys, and they have a lot more cases.
Thank you for joining us, Justice Gold. For extensive coverage of the fight for abortion access in Arizona and to stay up to date on the latest developments, visit azcentral.com or follow us on social media.
The Arizona Republic. Here for it. Are you?
For this week's Sunspot, two Phoenix Suns players made the cut and are heading to the Olympics. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are part of the 12-man roster that will represent Team USA in Paris this summer. Both players are returning to the U.S. Olympic team, having won the gold medal at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. Steve Kerr, the coach for the Warriors, is the head coach for Team USA. The team begins training on July 6th before heading off to Paris. They'll face off against Serbia, South Sudan, and Puerto Rico in group play. Thank you for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. Have a great week.